Can they engineer a soft landing? Whether they do 4 hikes, 7 hikes, 10 hikes, I don't think that's really going to materially slow inflation, unfortunately.
It looks like Bitcoin's winning.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bitcoiner's Guide, episode 3, where we take you to the top of the Bitcoin rabbit hole, but it's up to you to put in the proof of work hours to really understand what Bitcoin is. I'm your host, Big Sean Harris, with my co-host Anon, Sean and Anon, here with Plan Marcus, the legend himself. Marcus, how's your trade going?
Hey, what's up, Sean? Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me. Trade always going up, brother. You know, all I look at is my Bitcoin number. It's only going up. That's the way to go. You buy Bitcoin, you stack Bitcoin, goes up only.
Yes, sir. That is the right trade to be in, and that's the trade that I am in as well. Wanted to timestamp this talking about Bitcoin and that trade, which is stack and stack some more. It is 7:06 p.m. here in the Canary Islands where I am. We have a big windstorm today. Don Sell, which sounds like don't sell. Don't sell on Twitter was reminding me of that. You know, we have some windstorms going on, but going on to Bitcoin's price, it is currently 38,700 and some change, down about 69%. Over the last 24 hours, or sorry, 0.69% over the last 24 hours. So it's well on its way to $1 million and more. You just got to be patient, have some load time preference, and we will see that. So for today's show, wanted to give you guys a little teaser into what you're going to hear. We will provide the Bitcoiner's Guide tip of the week, otherwise known as, you know, free lessons handed out by a couple of Bitcoiners. We're also going to talk about current news. There is a little voting going on about proof of work mining in Europe, as well as the El Salvador volcano bond, the Bitcoin bond from El Salvador. When's that getting issued? And what can we expect from those things? And of course, Plan Marcus and we're going to talk a little bit about price and how to wrap your mind around what the price action is doing. Why are we crab walking when things may seem great, they may seem bad? We're going to get into that. We won't do any technical analysis. We promise not to speak over your head, and we're going to have a good show. So getting into the first topic of today, the Bitcoiner's Guide tip of the week. I wanted to talk a little bit about what is money. I think the reason why I want to talk about what is money is the question that I've had a lot in my life personally, especially when I started to make some money. I wanted to understand more and more about what is money. You know, I always find it interesting that people work their whole lives for money, and we never really try to study what money is, why it's important. There's some people that say it's not important, but I can promise, you know, even no matter how peaceful you are, it's true, money doesn't buy happiness, but money is important. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how I think about money, and then shoot it over to Marcus as well about what his thoughts are on money. I look at money.
Funny, right?
What'd you say?
Because I say it's funny because I remember coming into like the space as well, and you hear people talk about what is money, and it's like, but wait a minute, like what am I missing? You know, it's like the dollar, the euro, there's different countries, you got different currencies. What do you mean, what is money? You know, so then you realize, whoa, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, because I think that's the biggest thing is when I first started learning about money, or when I just thought money is, you know, I'm from the United States. Money is it's the dollar. It's what I spend things on. That's what I use to buy things, you know? And I didn't realize that there's a lot more to it than just spending money, which would be a medium of exchange. I think there's 3 main parts of money that are extremely important to understand. The first one is medium of exchange. You know, how do you buy and sell things? Another is unit of account. what are your things, your products, your services? What are they priced in? Are they priced in the euro? Are they priced in the dollar? Are they priced in sats and Bitcoin? And then store of value, which is extremely important. And that's what we've talked about in the past episodes. There's going to be 21 million Bitcoin mined ever, and that's it. And so the store of value in Bitcoin is 1 Bitcoin always equals 1 Bitcoin, because it's 1 Bitcoin over 21 million. We don't know how many dollars are in existence, how many euros are in existence. We'll never know how many will get printed and created out of thin air. And so to me, what I think when I think about money, those are very important topics. And money it's my energy. What I expend every single day when I work, my life force, I want to save that in something that doesn't lose value and doesn't get debased. And Marcus, what are some more of your thoughts on what money is to you?
Yeah, no, those are the obvious point that you've covered. Another thing is like, all right, we have digital money, we have cash, but if you actually know that, I'm not 100% sure of the figures, but I believe it's like less than 10% of all the money in circulation, it's probably way less than that, is actually cash. So most of our money already doesn't physically exist, right? When you hear people say, but Bitcoin is digital, I like tangible stuff. Well, your money right now is it's already digital. So it makes you think about, what's the difference when you hear somebody talking about what is the CBDC, like now the central banks are basically inspired by Bitcoin, because there was no central bank digital currency before Bitcoin. So Bitcoin changed all that. And they're trying to, play into it by saying, well, here's digital money now. We're going to make our money digital, but it's already digital, right? So yeah. And how do they create it? You like growing up, I always figured, okay, I know they can print more of it, but you kind of figure there's this really responsible guy at the central bank that's looking at inflation, and
Yeah.
when the economy is tight, he'll print a little bit more, but he's very wary not to print too much. Yeah, but then going down the rabbit hole, you realize that they're kind of addicted to this money printing, and it's actually a tax on your savings, because they can tax you by saying, all right, we're going to raise tax over your houses, or we're going to do income tax, or we're going to tax your car, or whatever they want to tax to raise more income for the government. But the easiest way to tax you is just print more money. Those are some of the thoughts. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And when you're thinking about money being digital, it's like we already are at that stage where basically, most people, most millennials, and Gen Zers don't even carry cash on them anymore. And so and then you want to figure out, has money always been something from the government? When did governments kind of get the monopoly on money? Why do they have that monopoly on money? Will they have that monopoly on money forever? And obviously Bitcoiners think that the separation of money and state is a good thing. Not having anyone who can centrally control your money, and you become your own Bitcoin guy, and you become financially self-reliant. I think that is the most important thing about money, and something about Bitcoin that makes living life easier, and it makes your work have more value, because you can save your money, you can save your energy and your workforce in something that won't fail you.
But Sean, question. I remember thinking this. Here are some really bright students or something. They created this Bitcoin thing. I know it was Satoshi Nakamoto. It wasn't students, but I remember reading the first article. It was from it was like this student at a technical university who wrote this little article in a newspaper. So I figured, okay, here are these students playing with like digital money, and they've created a coin, a token, and now they're saying it's going to be money for the world. It's not like, sure, anybody can create a token and say this is going to be money. Like, why can something become money?
Yeah, that's a great question. Why Bitcoin, and why not laptops or shoes, right? Like that's what we talked about last week with RD. That just goes back to the whole properties of money. What makes something attractive to the users of money? And the users just being you and me, right? Regular people. We want to either save our energy and money. We want to be able to spend our money easily. We want to receive payments easily. We want to have things priced in a comprehensible way that we understand, what it is. So I think those are the things that we're talking about. Like, why would someone pick Bitcoin over some other form of money, like gold or like cattle or glass beads, which all have been money in the past? And it goes back to, having properties of money where it's scarce, 21 million Bitcoin, it's divisible, it's durable, all of those properties of money that we've talked about before.
And I guess you also need to rely on it that somebody else will recognize it as money as well.
Yes.
So I guess that's part of the recognizability. But I think recognizability is also that you can easily see that it's real money. So in the case of gold, it's recognizable. Gold as a metal is always really easy to see. This is gold. It's very scarce. People can't just reproduce it or create fake gold because that's often very easy to see. So those are all the properties, I guess.
Yeah, and like I remember I watched a Ross Stevens interview. It was a few months back, and he basically just said that that biologically people gravitate towards the soundest money out there. It's something that's innate inside of us that we may not even recognize that we're moving towards as a society, and one by one we're moving towards the soundest money that is available. But we do it because it benefits everyone. The incentives of the soundest money make it so that people will gravitate towards it. And so when you have a money like a fiat currency, like the dollar or the euro, where you can't really save your life work, you get debased because of inflation, then you gravitate away from that. And we've seen that already, right? Most rich people save their money in real estate or stocks or bonds or whatever the new thing is, right? Most people don't.
Scarce and desirable stuff.
Yeah, Michael Cera say, a house in Miami Beach or, a Picasso painting, right? It's like anything that's scarce, that's where people are saving their money. And so we can already see that people are already leaving fiat money. They're already gravitating away from it and they're moving into more scarce things. The problem is with those things, you still have third parties that control and have centralized power over them, and that you have to trust other people to not either debase, make more of what you own that you thought was once scarce, because they are now incentivized to make more of it. And you have to trust that they won't steal it from you. And that's the difference with Bitcoin. It can't be stolen from you. You own your own keys, and it can't be debased. 1/21 million, and that's forever. So kind of going on, how do you think Bitcoin is going to change the future?
Wow, that's a big question. I think Bitcoin has already changed the future, right? We can look at how Bitcoin has already changed the course. The fact that we're now having a president signing an executive order around the future of our monetary system and digital payments. We have in Europe a vote that we're going to talk about later, as you mentioned in the intro. We've got this growing awareness of what is money and how our money is being manipulated, something that most people have basically been sleeping on, you know, like just not awake to for a long time. So there's this awakening that's going on, and there's this outlook of a fairer future, you know, because we all know that money is used for good and for evil, and especially when you look at governments and wars and politics, you know, like money can be used for good and evil, but when it's controlled by major powers, you know, well, history shows that it's not always used for good, you know. Now
Yeah.
by giving the money, yeah, um,
Yes,
and
I was just gonna say when you.
banks,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say,
I'll
yeah,
continue.
with Bitcoin, it just takes away the money printer. And I think that's the difference, right? Is money will kind of always be, it'll be like the sun, it'll shines on the good and the evil. You know, the rain rains on the good and the evil. Money is gonna be used by the good and the evil. And the difference with Bitcoin is that the evil or the ones who, you know, are only self-interested won't have access to print more money once they have money. With Bitcoin, that's the proof of work. It always requires more work to get more Bitcoin. There's no money printer where you can just print money out of thin air. And honestly, I think this leads perfectly into that our first article, our first piece of news. If you wanted to
I just want to riff a little bit
yeah,
more on that. How is
yeah,
Bitcoin going to change the future, Sean? Because,
yes,
you know, like in Bitcoin Twitter, you know, everybody's been talking about this for a long time. And obviously, um, uh, peer-to-peer payments without a bank in between, right? You can just send it 24/7 instantly across the globe. I mean, that's insane already. We kind of are already so used to it now, but that's been a big change. And actually, it's caused the banks to improve their payment speeds as well. Since Bitcoin has come out, they've done their best
yeah,
to, you know, to try and catch up. So that's something that's changed. It's banking the unbanked, right? People who never before had were able to get a bank because of the country they grew up in or were born into, can now actually get access to finance as long as they have an internet connection. We look at the remittances, it's changing, right? People in the States sending money back to El Salvador, for instance, over strike. They don't have to go through parties like, what's their name again?
Western Union.
Like Western Union,
Yeah,
exactly. That, you know, that take like huge cuts. If you're sending like a small $100, you know, like the fixed fee is already something like $15 or $20. So that's like insane that you get to, you know, save that money and actually get all that value across back to El Salvador, where your family can spend it the way they like to. But if you actually go a little bit further, and that's something that's really been blowing my mind lately, is how Bitcoin is changing the whole, not only the financial side of things, but like the whole energy market seems to be
yeah,
impacted now by the incentives that proof of work is causing. You know, the fact that now, you know, where before, if you wanted to say set up like a renewable wind park, or, you know, you have to find funding for a hydro dam. These are big investments, you know, and a lot of times they produce energy at times when the energy demand is not there. So um, yeah, how are you gonna find the finance? You know, it's heavily subsidized by countries, but now you have Bitcoin. The miners are happy with all that wasted, you know, or extra produced energy, because now you can just flip that directly into Bitcoin, into money. So it's actually now funding your project, you know. So yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
basically yeah,
you see how Bitcoin can stabilize the grid unlike
right.
anything in the past. And it really is a game changer for, you know, for energy that many people, you know, are just misinformed on. I think a lot of people think that Bitcoin wastes energy, and it's actually the reverse, that Bitcoin uses wasted or stranded energy most of the time. And Bitcoin miners are incentivized to use as much renewable wasted stranded energy as possible, because if they do, the energy costs are cheaper. And that is the whole point, is to be able to mine more Bitcoin using less energy. And the more energy that's used, it can be used to stabilize grids in whatever city that they may pertain to.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, interesting rabbit hole is also to dive into the petrodollar system. I don't think we should go all the way in there today, but basically, you know, the US has said to the Saudis, you know, like, as long as you sell all your oil in US dollars, then we'll provide protection for your family, and you'll always have power in Saudi Arabia, and your kingdom will always be on top. And that's very smart by the US, because, you know, by saying that all oil has to be sold in dollars means there's always going to be a demand for oil, and thus there's always going to be a demand for US dollars, you know, giving it like this, yeah, like this floor price level, you know. But if that falls away, yeah, what happens to the US dollar, you know, because the dollar itself isn't backed by gold anymore. It's literally just pieces of papers and zeros and ones on a computer.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens. Like what we've seen with Russia being taken off SWIFT payment system and basically being exiled from the dollar. They still sell their coal, their natural gas, and their oil to different countries, and they can't do it in the dollar anymore. And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens, because a lot of those dollars or euro dollars will not have as much demand. And so what happens when all of a sudden, there's a lot of countries outside the United States that aren't using the dollar, and there's a loss in demand for the dollar. Where does that money go to, right? And so it'll be
not to mention that basically oil is free for the United States, because they get to print the dollars and buy oil with it, right? So the minute that it's priced not any longer in dollars, but it's priced in gold or in Bitcoin, they're actually going to have to come up with the money to pay for that.
Or they're going to have to start using their own oil, one or the other.
Right, or just steal it from the Saudis.
Yeah. So kind of going on to speaking about proof of work and what that means for Bitcoin, out in Europe where you are, and I kind of am in the Canary Islands, there's been a little voting on the proof of work mining ban in the EU. Did you want to dive a little deeper into that?
Yeah, I think the latest news is actually that they voted against the bill. So it was voted out, luckily for Europe. I mean, I think Preston Pish just tweeted out this one time Europe did not shoot itself in the foot this time.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a plus and a win for the people and especially the miners in Europe. So yeah, proof of work. Do we need to get into what is proof of work?
I think just more than anything, why don't you get into it a little bit, and we can talk about it. We don't need to explain every little thing, but maybe just a high level view of what proof of work is.
Yeah, so basically the news is that the European Union how do you say that? They send in a proposed bill with a proposal to ban proof of work mining in the EU. And they were citing mainly the energy use of Bitcoin, to run the miners, basically the guessing game. That it uses too much energy, and it's bad for the environment. So we need to ban proof of work mining. And I believe it was even going further than mining, because mining wouldn't be allowed, but also the exchanges and the service providers were then also not allowed to, and that was a proposal that they were then not allowed to provide any services. So basically, if you have an exchange in Europe, you wouldn't be allowed to offer Bitcoin on that exchange. So it was actually a pretty major bill, but already turned out before the weekend that apparently, like, they changed the language. What happens is they'll write a bill, They'll send it out. It'll be in draft. People get to comment on it. It'll leak to public. Give the public also a chance to react. Now we see Bitcoin Twitter is always on top of these things. You gotta love it. The memers all over. They get into action, whether it's through tweets or trolling. But they're a voice that cannot be ignored. I mean, just look at any tweet. And the language changed. And I guess people maybe did see a little bit because I honestly believe it's just too soon for most politicians. It is complicated, obviously, but if you look at the incentives and even what we just talked about, the whole energy and energy usage story around proof of work and Bitcoin is the most misunderstood, and it's actually the complete opposite of what they're saying, right? I mean, first of all, Bitcoin mining is 100% electric, so it's as green as a Tesla in that sense. We use electricity, and the electricity is as green as how it's produced.
Yeah.
So if you do nuclear or coal or wind or hydro or whatever, that's actually whether it's and is it then wasted energy that it's using? Bitcoin mining, prefers the cheapest energy, and that's usually the energy that's wasted anyway. There's so many nuclear power plants or other power plants that cannot be shut down, are producing overcapacity. And when the grid is not asking for that electricity, there's a lot of electricity just being wasted. It's just being thrown away basically. And Bitcoin goes in there and actually buys that energy.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on the ban in the EU?
My thoughts were that with this vote that was going on, first of all, it just shows how early that we are still in Bitcoin. And I think that's like the number one thing that I always try to tell people is Bitcoin is extremely early. Just because the price is at, whatever, $38,000, and you saw it a couple years ago when it was at $3,000, that doesn't mean that you've missed the boat. I think most people still don't know what Bitcoin is. They don't know how to wrap their minds around what Bitcoin is. And I look at it like this vote, if you're the EU and you're going to, if they would have banned proof of work Bitcoin mining or proof of work mining in the EU, I think that's akin to relying on another nation or relying on Russia for your gas, your oil, your coal. Just because you don't produce it doesn't mean that you won't use it. And I think that's the biggest thing to understand with Bitcoin is that you can't ban Bitcoin. You can only ban yourself from Bitcoin. It's an opt-in network. And so as you look at what happened with Bitcoin, I think it was a smart move by the EU by not banning. I don't even know if they realized how smart of a move it was. But if they really wanted, if you really cared about the environment, that's if they were that concerned about the environment, what I would say would be to try to use, okay, for Bitcoin or proof of work mining, you can only use renewable energy or stranded energy. It has to be 100% green energy. I don't know if that's what they really wanted to do. But just to ban Bitcoin proof of work mining, it seems very kind of archaic to me. Old thinking.
Yeah, and it sounds something that could possibly be doable, right? But if you think about like the technicalities of mining Bitcoin or banning Bitcoin, I mean, it's practically like impossible to enforce. I mean,
yeah, and it's
basically you have to shut down. As long as there's internet, you're gonna have people mining Bitcoin. It's like here in Holland, a lot of people like to grow certain plants in their attic or in their basement. It's illegal as well, but you're going to be spending enormous resources trying to fight it. Okay, that's not a reason not to ban it, but it is something that you have to realize. By banning it doesn't mean that you can actually ban it. And another thing I think, which is a really good article, and I think everybody who is new in the space should definitely give at their Dergigi a follow. That is at DERGIGI. And he's wrote an article and he shared it a lot of times in these past few days. So if you just go to his profile,
I was thinking about that article.
Yeah, that article is crazy. It talks about, why banning Bitcoin is actually just the same as saying you're not allowed to guess a number or produce random numbers, because that's literally what Bitcoin mining is. We're just guessing numbers. So and proof of work is literally, you can do it on paper and pencil, if anything. So is that not allowed either? So, if you take that to court and really, dish it out, there's no way you can, what are you banning exactly? Just in the definitions alone, good luck with it. So it's, I think it has, it's interesting. Luckily they voted it out.
Yeah, it makes it, it's just really hard to ban Bitcoin mining. It's like, they tried to ban alcohol in Prohibition. That was physical. They've tried to ban illegal drugs in the United States, and there's still illegal drugs going around, so much so that, that Joe Biden's passing out crack pipes in the hood because it's like, okay, even though crack is illegal, we're still going to hand out crack pipes as the government. It's like, okay, so what can you really ban? And if Bitcoin is digital, that makes it even harder to ban it, because it's not something that you can just see. And I like Brandon Quittam's take. He wrote about Bitcoin mining too, and his thing was, Bitcoin mining is everything you don't understand about Bitcoin added with everything you don't understand about energy. And it takes some time to wrap your mind around, what is proof of work versus proof of stake. And proof of stake is fiat. It's what we currently have with the US dollar and the central bank. And what's the hash rate? What are all these technical terms? And so I think those are really good points to think about. That Bitcoin mining, the more you understand about what is energy, what is money, why is money energy, it just shows how all of these things are related. And it brings Bitcoin mining is beautiful because Bitcoin is digital, but it brings it connects it to the real world. It connects Bitcoin to the real world through energy. And I think that is what makes Bitcoin beautiful too.
Imagine, Satoshi had this idea and he came up with the thing like, okay, Bitcoin didn't have a price yet, right? So what actually made Bitcoin valuable? If you wanted to get Bitcoin, like in the early days, the only way to get Bitcoin was to mine it, right? You have to put in some work. You actually have to support the network. You have to run a computer. You have to take part in guessing these numbers, validating transactions, and if you did that and your computer put in the work, because you have to, there's no way to get that Bitcoin unless you just guess the right numbers. So you have to guess a lot of numbers, right? So your computer has to just be running and guessing a lot of numbers. So you're expending time, electricity, and effort to get that Bitcoin. So that anybody who has Bitcoin actually put a lot of work into getting that Bitcoin. There's no other way of getting it. Okay, obviously, once somebody has mined the Bitcoin, he can sell it to you. But the fact that that person put in work to get that Bitcoin means it de facto has a certain value to that person. Actually you cannot just create it out of nothing. It's not worthless because they really put in the work. So
there will always be,
I love the term. The term
value.
Proof of work is just really good.
Yeah, there's always going to be some value. Going on to the next topic, I thought was really interesting. That
run out of time here, Sean. You got to cut me off.
No, we have all the time that we want. So, but I think we covered that pretty well. So going on to the next article of news, before we get into price, coming from a guy named Martin Young, which we all know about El Salvador. It's called El Salvador Bets Big on Bitcoin Bond Launch This Week. Just a little excerpt from the article. It says the 10-year volcano Bitcoin bond is a vital part of El Salvador's economic revival experiment in which it hopes to raise $1 billion, kind of like Dr. Evil, but in a better way. The income from the bonds is to be split into buying more of the asset, which is Bitcoin, and funding a Bitcoin city near Conchagua volcano in the country's southeast region. So I really like this, what's going on with Bitcoin, with the volcano bond in El Salvador. This is the first sovereign or country bond that we've seen where they've said, we want to borrow money to buy Bitcoin. So it's going to be $1 billion bond. That's what they're hoping for. And they're going to take half the money and buy Bitcoin. And the other half of the $1 billion will be to create Bitcoin City in El Salvador for the infrastructure, which in turn will bring more mining. They will be able to mine more Bitcoin and have, it'll just be able to build off of itself. I really like this bond, just for the fact that currently there's about $20 trillion in negative yielding bonds today, which means that if you are buying one of those bonds, you are, like when you hold your money in the bank, in a regular checking account, you pay nothing. In a savings account, you may get 0.04% back annually. If you are in a negative yielding bond, that means that you give your money to someone, you lend your money to either a country or to a company, and you are paying them to hold your money. So I really like this bond because there's a pretty decent interest rate. I think it's around 6 to 8%. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, and I didn't see it in this article. But it's a decent interest rate, especially with the majority of bonds sitting, at 1 to 2%, and some are negative yielding bonds. So I really think that this has a good chance of being successful. This is the first Bitcoin bond that's been structured this way. And it'll be really cool to see if this bond gets oversubscribed or overbought, which would be awesome for El Salvador as well as for Bitcoin. I think there's a lot riding on this, and I think there's a lot of people in the background that are doing a lot to make sure that everything works out well with this bond, and to make sure that it does get, not only does it just get bought by $1 billion, but that it gets oversubscribed. And I think there's a lot of people that have, it's like, okay, why not take a little bet on Bitcoin and see the return of 7 or 8% on a bond when you're normally seeing 1 or 2%. So I think that's the incentives.
Yeah, it's amazing that we're here already. I mean, it came out last year that that El Salvador was going to make it legal tender in the country, and now they're actually issuing sovereign bonds backed by Bitcoin, something we thought was probably not going to happen until 2026 or 2028. That nation state adoption would occur, but we're already here, and it's going so fast. And not to mention the bonds, besides the 6 or 6.5% interest, I believe it was, that they're covering, you're also taking part in some of the upside of Bitcoin's price. So if the Bitcoin's price goes up in the next 5 or 6 years, or whatever the term of the bond is, you're going to benefit from that upside as well. And I believe that you said they're going to use the money to build the Bitcoin City, but I think a big part of that investment, they're planning to actually build the mining capacity. So besides buying Bitcoin, El Salvador is also going to invest in the mining infrastructure, so that they're going to be mining and accumulating even more Bitcoin as a sovereign state. So it's amazing. It's a great, it's very, very exciting development.
Yeah,
and
it just goes back to
it's not just also it opens up the market not only to individuals, but there's a lot of major funds out there, whether it's sovereign funds or funds with certain mandates that dictate what they can and cannot invest in. And they probably cannot buy Bitcoin outright, but they're allowed to buy bonds. And so that opens up we're penetrating like these huge bags of trillions of dollars
Yeah.
of money that can now actually find their way into Bitcoin. That's very exciting.
Yeah, it's just, I would look at it, if you do have, say you have a few million or $100 million in a negative yielding bond, why not hedge yourself on this side in a Bitcoin bond that's yielding 7-8%? And as Bitcoin continues to go up in price, then you even get a bigger return back, because as Bitcoin goes up in price, the bond is structured in a way where you actually get a higher return the higher that Bitcoin goes up. So it just goes back to what I always think about as super important is financial self reliance, is making sure that you as a person, it's super important that you can rely on yourself for your finances. And it just goes back to, who is your Bitcoin guy? You are your Bitcoin guy. There shouldn't be someone else. In today's day and age, it's like no longer are the days where you can just trust someone else to handle your money, because normally they're diversifying into a pile of garbage, and then they're taking a fee from you on top of that. And so it's really cool to see a country like El Salvador that was so reliant on the dollar and reliant upon the IMF for their financial reliance. They relied upon another country, and they relied upon the International Monetary Fund just to make sure that they had enough money. And so with this Bitcoin bond, they can rely on themselves. They can use Bitcoin, and they can get out of all of those loans that they owe to the IMF, which are kind of like loan shark loans to struggling countries like El Salvador, and they can be reliant upon themselves. I think this is like the biggest part of this story, is that if a country can pull itself, out of poverty in such a manner like this, then it goes to show that individuals as well can change. You can change your life, and it's not easy. It takes time. You have to study. You need to study what money is, but it's definitely possible to make these changes, to go from a high time preference way of living where you're consuming everything, not thinking about the future, to a low time preference where you are thinking about the future. You're thinking about the next generations, who your money may go to, and what you can do throughout your life. And so I think that's the biggest upside to me of seeing what Bitcoin can do, is it can literally change a country. It can literally change your life, and not in like a lottery type of way where you're just betting on it, but in a calculated manner, a sophisticated manner, where you can think about what is money. You can understand that fiat is an error, because there can always be more printed. It will always be debased. That we can be sure of. And will Bitcoin go up or will it go down in the short term? We're not sure. Over the long term, it's definitely poised to go up. So thinking about Bitcoin price, what are your thoughts currently on what Bitcoin's doing right now? We're sitting at 38,000. As Pedro, aka Retweet, he always says that Bitcoin will go through price discovery in the most painful way possible. What are your thoughts on some of these short-term movements in Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's been quite steady, and it's been a bit boring in the past couple of weeks, right? I mean, I feel like we've just been like stuck here at like this, just like this 40K level, like 39, 38, 40. But yeah, it's all short term, So you promised us, you promised our listeners no TA. I love to stare at the graph.
Yeah.
Every time I open it up, you just open up that graph, you go to tradingview.com, you look for the BTC price, you zoom out, you put it like on the weekly or the monthly, and you put it on log scale. meaning, you know, that every step of the ladder is like a 10x, and you just see this linear line. It's so obvious, right? It's just like, it's just linear growth on a log scale chart means constant exponential growth since 2011, since it started, you know, when it had its first price, all the way up to now. It's just constant exponential growth. And you can not only look at the price, you can look at the hash rate. It's the same thing. It's just exponential growth over time. We're just watching this new phenomenon, you know, just adopting exponentially. And when you look at the numbers, it's like maybe 10 or 20% of people own some Bitcoin, you know. If you ask those people how much Bitcoin do you own, like a lot of people will have like $100. So even the people that have it have not like fully adopted it yet. This thing is phenomenal. It's been an exponential bull market
Yeah.
for over 10 years. And it's showing no sign of slowing down, you know, and it seems way too good to be true. It does, it really does. But you know, that's what I thought in 2017. It's just continued exponential growth, steady. It hasn't showed any sign of weakness. Sure, people will say, but it fell from 20,000 to like 3,000. Yeah, but just look at the linear line you can pass through it. You know, those are all like 3 years is short term in Bitcoin. You know, like this technology is going to be around for like way more than 100 years, probably like next 500 years. Who knows, right? We're talking way beyond our lifetimes. So 10 years is nothing. We're at the very early stages. This thing is going to grow for the next decade or two. And
yeah, I think
I'm here for it. I'm here for it, man.
Yeah, me too. I think Vikingo tweeted out that he said, I'm getting some serious 8-9K vibes. And I think I'd agree. And he's not saying it's going to go down to 8 or 9K. He's talking about, you know, a couple of years back when Bitcoin was sitting around 8 or 9K, there was a lot of accumulation in that phase, a lot of Bitcoin switching weak hands to strong hands. And that's what it's all about, right? Is right now we're sitting around this 40K zone, and we have no idea when it's just going to shoot up. And it might go down, like Bitcoin goes up, it goes down, and no one knows exactly when or why.
You know what? The beauty of it, Bitcoin is constantly redistributing itself. You know, like the early hodlers, they're in big profits when the price goes up. You know, and when she starts falling, a lot of those buyers will start getting nervous. Oh my God, it might fall 50% again. So they start selling, and new buyers are accumulating it at that point, you know?
Yeah.
And traders will be trading until they get, you know, to trade it out, you know, and then they're stuck, and everybody's reaccumulating at this level. And when there's still a lot of people in profits, there's going to be always some sell pressure, but there's constant flow of new interested people who are buying up that Bitcoin from the weak hands. It's redistributing, taking out the profits, evening it out, and then, you know, we're not making more Bitcoin. You know, it's the halving is going to come up as well.
And like I always say, don't trade the corn, don't short the corn, don't sell the corn.
Don't try to be smart.
There's I mean, even Willy Woo is supposed to be, you know, this amazing trader, and he has all this chain analysis, on-chain analysis, Glassnode subscription. He has his paid newsletter that he was making a lot of money on, just came out last week and said, I'm no longer writing about the short-term price of Bitcoin. I'm no longer doing the paid newsletter. And why is that? Because he can't figure it out. And it's no disrespect to Willy Woo, but it just goes to show, he's been wrong for a long time now about the short-term moves of Bitcoin. And that's why I say, like, we don't have enough information, and Bitcoin is just so unpredictable to know what it's going to do in the short term. So there's no reason to trade. There's no reason to short it. And there's never reason to sell it. You know, so I would just say, you know, get like a Strike or Swan or whatever app is in your country, buy a little bit of Bitcoin. Don't buy too much at the beginning. If you're going to panic sell, But as you get more conviction, as you study what Bitcoin is, you're going to want to buy more and more and more until you're all in. And for most people, you become all in because the price of Bitcoin just gets bigger and bigger compared to everything else in your portfolio.
I love that saying. I love that saying, how time in the market, you know, how much time you have in the market always outweighs trying to time the market. You know, timing the market is a fool's errand. You know, it's a guessing game. It's a casino game. Sure, you could get lucky and you can win big. I mean, just look at the graph of the history. It's so obvious. You know, if I would have sold here and bought back here, oh my God. Yeah, good luck. You know, everybody's seeing that. Everybody's trying it. It's a zero game. If you win, somebody else just lost, right? So there can never be all winners. So, and you're up against some really sophisticated guys. You're up against your own emotions. You know, like you just sold and then the price goes up. It doesn't just go straight down. No, it recovers, and then it dumps some more. Yeah. So you know, the emotions wreck with you. You get in trouble. You panic. You lose money. And you're going to come to the conclusion that you should have just held on to your Bitcoin and just focused on stacking more and play the short game. You know, Bitcoin long term, it's the surest, biggest asymmetric bet of the century right now. Yeah. So why will you risk losing Bitcoin by trading it? But anyway, people are going to get burnt, and
that's the trade. Like, and we're not financial experts, we're not financial advisors, but no one has ever lost money by putting in their money into Bitcoin and hodling for a 4-year period. So why not make it 10 years and see what happens? Why not make it 20 years and see what happens, depending on how old you are? You know, I think that is the trade to be in, right? How's your trade? Well, if I'm continually buying and I'm not selling Bitcoin, then your trade's doing pretty good. And yeah, you might be down from 6 months ago, but give yourself 6 years and you'll see where Bitcoin's price is at.
Your purchasing power is going to increase, and maybe it's not even Bitcoin. It's also the dollar devaluing. They're just printing so much more of it.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
And soon is coming the time where the traditional financial markets are going to get shaken up in such a way that what has worked for the past 30 to 50 years will no longer work. And that's what we're trying to sound the voice of warning to, is this, the whole system is changing and the base layer is going to be Bitcoin. And so as you learn more, we try to share what we learn, and we hope that you can learn something as you're listening in. Just wanted to mention as well, on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. we go live on YouTube with the rest of the Meme Factory. This Thursday at 7:30 p.m. we have Andy Edstrom, author of Why Buy Bitcoin. He joins us, and that's definitely an episode you will not want to miss. And remember, what you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, don't just let it stay here. Please share this episode and all of the Bitcoiners Guide. If you learned something today or found this information helpful and or entertaining, please help us out. Like and subscribe. Leave a review. The algorithms like that a little bit better. And let us know if you liked it, if you didn't like it, and anything we can improve on. As for Bitcoiners Guide, episode 3, we are over and out. Peace.